For this video, we will be talking about section 5.2, but this is now day 3, which is writing equations in standard form. So day 1 was point slope form, day 2 slope intercept form. Now we have day 3, which is standard form. So to start, we just have one new vocab word here. The standard form of a linear equation is ax plus by equals c, where a has to be greater than 0. A and B are both not 0, and then A, B, and C are integers with the greatest common factor of 1. So we basically have two major rules here for writing an equation in standard form. And it's actually in these steps right here. So writing equations of lines in standard form. So if we use these steps, you're going to notice today is very, very repetitive. Step 1, if we need to, find the slope using the slope formula that we've been using for a very long time. Step 2, choose one of the 2 points to use, just like we've done before in other notes pages for day 1 and day 2. Substitute the slope in one of the points into point slope form, so that would be this formula right here. And then we have convert to slope intercept form, that's y equals mx plus b. And then after that, so basically what I need you to understand is steps 1 to 4 are not anything different than what we've been doing in day 1 and day 2. Day 3, though, is step 5. That's going to be the newest part of today. So step 5, convert to standard form, ax plus by equals c. There's two rules that we have to follow here. A has to be positive at the end of our answer, and then A, B, and C must be integers, and that means no decimals or fractions. We will have several of these examples come up. We will talk about how to take care of those problems. So with that being said, looking at, 1 and 2 here, it says change to standard form. So again, standard form is ax plus by equals c. So you'll notice x and y are on the same side together, and it equals a constant. Remember our rules here, a has to be positive, and a, b, and c cannot be decimals or fractions. So looking at number 1, I already see a fraction. We're going to have to take care of that. So the first thing we're going to do is actually get rid of that fraction. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply everything by the denominator, and you're going to see what's going to happen here. So 2 times y would be 2y equals 2 times 7 halves. If we go down here, 2 times 7 halves. This is technically 2 over 1. And if you remember, when we multiply fractions, we go across the top and across the bottom. So then 2 times 7 would be 14 over 1 times 2 is 2. 14 over 2 gives us 7. So when you distribute 2 to the 7 halves, the 2's basically cancel out. So if I show that right here, they basically cancel out and you are left with just 7x. So this stays there. But then we also have to remember, now I'm going to go ahead and erase because the 2 doesn't permanently cancel out. It just did for that one term. So then we have to continue here. 2 times 5 would be plus 10. So we distribute that 2 to everything. Then we're left with this. Now, one of the problems is fixed. We don't have any decimals or fractions. However, we need to move the x and y to be on the same side together. So in order to do that, I'm going to subtract 7x from both sides to move it across the equal sign. Now, standard form, the order matters. So between x and y, x does have to come first. So we have negative 7x and then a positive 2y, so plus 2y equals 10 because those canceled out. Now, the other rule is now being broken. A is the leading coefficient, ax, right? A has to be positive, and in this case, it's negative right now. So we do have to do something to get rid of that. What we can do is just multiply the entire equation again by a -1. If I multiply by 1, the value of the number doesn't change, but if I multiply by -1, the sign will change and the value will stay the same. So -1 times -7x would give me a positive 7x, and now my rule is no longer being broken of a needing to be positive. But I do have to continue distributing to everything else. So -1 times 2y would be a -2y equals, don't forget about that 10 there, so then this would equal -10. This would be our final answer in standard form with no decimals or fractions and a being positive. Looking at number 2, which, by the way, I didn't mention, number 1 is actually in slope intercept form. So we were already at step 4 there. So we were able to just convert to to standard form, sorry. Looking at number 2, this one's actually in point slope form. So we're going to have to start with step 3 and then convert to step 4. Then we can do step 5. So in order to convert to slope intercept form, we need to distribute first. So we have y minus 1 stays the same. Negative 2/5 times x is just negative 2/5 x. But then we have, I'm going to do it over here, negative 2/5 times 10 over 1. So then this would give me negative 20 over 5. This gives me a negative 4. So then we're going to put minus 4 here. Now from here, we're going to add 1 to both sides. So then we have y equals negative 2/5 x is going to stay the same. Negative 4 plus 1 would be minus 3. Now we're at the same place we were to start with number 1. We're in slope-intercept form. We need to convert to standard form. First problem I notice that's being broken right now is we can't have fractions. Again, in order to get rid of that fraction, we're going to multiply everything by the denominator. So we're going to multiply everything by 5. 5 times y is 5y equals, if you remember from that first example, the whole reason we chose 5 was to get rid of the 5 on the bottom. So this 5 actually is going to cancel out with this 5 right here. I'm just not going to actually cancel it out because it doesn't permanently go away. All we're left with is this negative 2x is going to stay the same. And then 5 times negative 3 would be minus 15. Then the last thing here is we need to get x and y on the same side together. So we're going to do that by adding 2x to both sides. And then we would have 2x plus 5y, remember the order matters, equals negative 15. Now the nice thing about this problem is when I moved that 2x to the other side, it automatically made a be positive, which is exactly what I want. So this would be my final answer. Something I do want to make sure I make very clear. A is the only one that matters if it's positive or if it's negative. So C and B can both be negative, or one of them can be negative. It's totally fine. The only one that matters about it being negative is the A value. So the value that has X has to be positive. So that's it for the front. Let's go ahead and move on to the back. Okay, on the back side here, looking at 3 and 4, if you remember our steps from the front, the first thing we have to have no matter what is the slope. So looking at number 3, we don't have the slope. That's going to be the first thing we have to do. So m equals 3 minus a negative 3 over 4 minus 1 would give us 6 over 3, which simplifies to 2. Step 2 says choose one of the 2 points to use. So I'm sure most of you would like to use 4, 3 since they're both positive. Works for me. You could use the other one too. You'd get the same exact answer at the end anyways. Using that ordered pair, we're going to put it into point slope form. So we have y minus 3 equals 2 times x minus 4. And then from here, we're going to convert to a slope-intercept form. So y minus 3 equals, distribute the 2, 2x minus 8. And then we're going to add 3 to both sides. Everything up until this point is stuff that we've already done in day 1 and day 2. So y equals 2x minus 5. This is where it's new, right? Yesterday, or I guess whenever you were in class last, we did day 2. Day 2, we stopped right here. Day 3, being standard form, we have to get x and y on the same side together. So we're going to do that. Oh, first of all, there are no fractions on this one, which is great. We don't have to get rid of a fraction. So we get to bypass that step. However, we do need to move the x value to the other side. So we're going to do that by subtracting 2x from both sides. So we have negative 2x plus y equals negative 5. You will notice that that rule again is being broken. We cannot have a be negative. So in order to get rid of that, we're just going to multiply everything by negative 1, which just changes all of the signs. So if we distribute that all the way through, we would have a positive 2x minus y equals a positive 5. And again, b and c can be negative. There's nothing wrong with that. This would be our final answer here for number 3. Looking at number 4, find the slope again. So m equals 3 minus 4 over 12 minus 9. This would give us negative 1 over 3. So then after that, pick a point. In this case, it really doesn't matter. I'll use 9 and 4 since they're a little bit smaller than 12 and 3. Well, kind of. I guess it depends on how you look at it. Regardless, you could choose either one. So then putting it into point slope form, y minus 4 equals negative 1/3 times x minus 9. Then from here, we're going to convert to slope-intercept form, so distribute. So we have y minus 4 equals negative 1/3 x. 2 negatives make a positive. 1/3 of 9 is 3. Then we're going to add 4 to both sides. So then this gives me y equals negative 1/3 x. 3 plus 4 would be plus 7. Ooh, my x is a little wonky there. And then from here, we have to convert to standard form. So again, 2 rules of standard form, no fractions or decimals, A has to be positive. I notice a fraction immediately, that's always going to be the first thing I get rid of. So I'm going to multiply everything by the denominator. 3 times y would give us 3y equals 3 times negative 1/3. Remember, these 2 3's are the ones that cancel out, so we are left with negative 1x or just negative x, and then 3 times 7 would give us plus 21. And then from here, we're going to add x to both sides because we need x and y to be on the same side. X plus 3y, equals 21. And that's our final answer because A is positive. The nice thing about it being negative when we start with it being negative is that when you add it to both sides, it takes care of the negative. So I'm never going to multiply by a negative until it's on the correct side. And I know for a fact whether or not I have to actually multiply by a negative. So there is 3 and 4. We have 5 and 6, and then we are all the way done. So starting with number 5 again here, find the slope first. M equals 5 minus a negative 5 over 0 minus 4. We have 5 minus a negative 5 turns into a plus sign. That would be 10 over 0 minus 4 is negative 4. Simplify this. Both of those can be divided by 2. So we have 5 over negative 2. Now, this one is going to be a little bit different, and it's actually a nice little shortcut. If you pay attention, 0, comma, a number is a y-intercept. If we know the y-intercept, we actually get to skip point slope form. If you don't catch that and you show all of the work, it's totally fine. This is just a shortcut to pay attention to. If we have 0, comma 5, that tells me B is 5. So I know M and I know B. So I'm going to go straight into slope-intercept form. Y equals M, which is 5 over negative 2. X plus B would be plus 5. So I get to completely skip point slope form. Now from here, we have to get rid of this fraction. So multiply everything by the denominator. Now, again, I will not do the negative because I know right now that if it's negative, it gets to be added to the other side and it will take care of the negative by itself. So I'm only going to multiply by 2. 2 times y would give us 2y equals 2 times 5 over 2. The 2's cancel out, so I'm going to be left with 5x. However, this negative does not cancel out. I'm going to bring it down. So the only thing that canceled out were the 2's. Please make sure we understand that. Then we have 2 times 5 would be plus 10. I do feel like I should probably explain that fraction. So 2 times 5 over negative 2. I'll go through this quickly. 2 is technically 2 over 1. If we multiply across the top, we have 10. Across the bottom, we have 1 times negative 2 would be negative 2. This gives us negative 5. Sorry, I cannot talk. That's where this negative 5 comes from. So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page here. So I'm going to go ahead and erase that real quick. Moving along here, we're going to add 5x to both sides. This is what I was talking about why I did not want to get rid of that negative just yet, because I know that when I add it, it's going to take care of it and not give me an extra step at the end. So if I add 5x to both sides, I have 5x plus 2y equals 10. A is positive. That is my final answer. We are good to go. Looking at number 6, find the slope first again. M equals negative 7 minus a negative 6 over negative 2 minus a negative 3. This one actually ends up with quite a few double negatives. So fixing both of those, we have negative 7 plus 6 is negative 1 over negative 2 plus 3 is 1. Negative 1 divided by 1 would just be negative 1 here. After that, pick a point. This one does not have a y-intercept, so it really doesn't matter which one we choose here. I'm just going to go with the first one. And then using that slope there, this one we don't get to skip point slope form. We do have to actually plug it in there. So we have y minus a negative 6 would be plus 6 equals m, which is negative 1, times x minus negative 3 would be plus 3. And then distribute. So we have y plus 6. We are now converting to slope-intercept form. So negative x minus 3. That negative x comes from negative 1 times x. And then we're going to subtract 6 from both sides. So then we have y equals negative x. This would give us minus 9. And then last step here, no fraction to get rid of. So all I have to do is add x to both sides. I have x plus y equals negative 9. And that's my final answer because A is already positive. So that is it for these notes. Just know it's a lot of steps, but it is the same process every single time, which is a nice thing about it, right? Find the slope first. If you're already given it, great, move on. put it in point slope form, convert to slope intercept form, convert to standard form. It's the same process every single time. So that is it.